Hello and welcome to the Wisconsin Drunken History Podcast. We are your hosts, Eric Sturgeon.
And I'm Russell Sorry.
This podcast is about all things Wisconsin, history, music, and culture.
While drinking a few brews.
Though we don't often use strong language, the jokes and the content is not intended for young audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Before we begin the episode, we have to give a huge shout out to the Dangits from Madison, Wisconsin, for providing us with great bluegrass intro you hear at the beginning of every episode. The song Razzle was written by Jamie Lampkins, but is performed on behalf of Tom Wasselchuk and the Dangits. If you have a chance, check these guys out at dang-its.com for upcoming shows, music, or on how to book them for weddings, parties, and etc. Thank you for listening.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 8. This is Wisconsin Drunken History. I am one of your hosts, Eric.
And I'm Russ Sorry.
Awesome. We wanted to just go ahead and thank everyone again. We've had a really awesome turnout for these videos. We have listeners now in Ireland, Australia, Canada, and even Illinois, which is nuts. Hopefully they haven't listened to some of the episodes where we absolutely trash talk those gutter filth, but all right. Also, we wanted to engage. We wanted to engage with you guys about future topics because we have a bunch that are in the vault that we really know that we want to research and that we have done even a little bit of digging into. But if you guys have suggestions, just reach out to us. You can comment on any one of the YouTube videos, send us reviews. Again, our website is projectcapestudio.com. Our email and stuff is in there. Hey, and while you're there, visit our TeePublic. There's a link in there to shop for items bearing our cool logo, or logos, I should say. We have a bunch of them now, right, Russ?
Yeah, actually, Stephanie gave us a few more, so they're loaded up.
Stephanie's awesome. Yeah. So, check out TeePublic if you want to put our logo on your chest. Also, once COVID kind of slows back a bit, we want to remind you that we are scheduling right now some live appearances and some local sit-ins where we go to pubs and actually do the reviews in person at both bars or at the breweries themselves. I know we've reached out to a bunch of them, so we are still very much so looking forward to getting out of the studio and into the public. And without further ado, here's our main story, Lumberjack Lingo.
As a Wisconsinite, we all recognize the sound of the chainsaw.
Russ, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was morning wood, right?
Oh, yeah. That's
nice.
More than just a stiff breeze, if you get me.
Yeah, that baby's tumbling.
So before we start the episode, as always, I'd like to tell where we get our information for the episode comes from. This episode, I used a 1938 book by Stuart Holbrook called Holy Old Mackinaw, A Natural History of American Lumberjack. He was a lumberjack turned book writer, and this part of the book was actually called the Lumberjack's Dictionary inside the book.
Ah.
We also used a publication from 1976 called The Loggers, which was published in the Time Life books.
Loggers?
As well as an up north publication called Logging and Forestry. This one was specifically the 2020 version, and if anyone wants to get it, it's at the Bad River up north by Hurley. It's called the Bad River Tribe Reservation, and we got it at the actual gift shop right on Highway 2 there.
And I know we had somebody reach out to us too about what our source was, that they were from not the same book or publication, but they were from another one that exists out there as well for Lumberjack Lingo.
Yeah, we got a little email from the Pioneer Park, who will probably be on the episode later today.
Yeah.
And they wanted to know where we got our information from. They were using a different book, but this is the 1938 version that we're using, and some of the terms are maybe a little old-timey, if you get my drift. But there's still something we use today as like somebody who cuts lumber.
Yeah, and honestly, I know that even the older terminology, although, it may have come from the 30s, a lot of that stuff it just carries over from generation of logger to generation. It seems to stick, even though now those terms mean something different to us. You and I being born in the 80s, we're probably going to have a different recollection or relate it to something different. But if you're in that industry and that's your field of work, then that's something that you're going to recognize right off the top.
Right, and I catch myself saying some of these. Obviously, I don't use all of them. But I want to say a quote from Henry Ford. And Henry Ford's one of my favorite people in history. He always has great quotes. And his quote goes, "Chop your own wood and it'll warm you twice." Which is true. I mean, I do it in the wintertime all the time, and just to warm myself up. The one thing you have to be aware of in Wisconsin is when you're sweating in negative 10 degrees, you can catch hypothermia very quickly. With the sweat, freeze it instantly. So
Henry Ford also said that you can have it in any color as long as it's black. So
right, and it is a max. It's like a very high exertion of force. And without further ado, we do want to give a shout out to all the people in the logging industry, especially men and women. It's a very hard job and dangerous. And we just wanted to give a huge shout out to the men and women who give us our 2x4s and our 4x8s.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to start some of the terms here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask my co-host here, Eric, some of these terms and get his take on them before I read the actual meaning of the term.
Here we go.
All right, Eric, so the first term we got is back cut.
Yeah, that's what happens when my wife is shaving my forest in the back there.
Yeah, it's not Steven Seagal giving you a chop to the back.
Yeah.
It's actually the cut that's made after you notch to drop the actual tree and it falls over. As you heard in that intro, that's basically what he was doing. He notched the tree and he's coming in for the back cut.
Okay, yeah, so okay. It just helps it fall in the right direction.
Exactly. All right, the next term I got is barber chair.
Yeah, I mean, that's where you go when you get your hair cut.
Yeah.
The uncomfortable chair that they try to hoist you up on, and
so when
then your feet dangle like a child.
So when you say you got a barber chair tree, the tree's actually spinning when it's coming down, which is scary because that way you don't know which direction it's going to fall.
Yeah, that's incredibly dangerous.
Do you know what a bindle is?
I think maybe like a bunch of sticks.
It's actually a bedroll or a pack that the lumberjacks would carry.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay, like a backpack or something maybe.
Do you know what a bird peak is?
No.
They're actually the black dots in the end of the log that reduce its value. And you see some of those like when you get the really shitty lumber at Menards, like the cheap cuts, the non-premium.
Right.
You'll see that.
So it's just black dots. What does that consist of, or what are the marks made of? Is it like mold or?
It's actually just like from the tree rings. So sometimes the trees will grow a little wonky, and obviously you've seen the bird's eye inside the tree logs where they're like the big knot inside there, and that reduces its value as well.
Holy cow!
So do you know what a boom is?
What we're using to speak on right now, our boom arms.
Yeah. It's a raft of logs that they use in the water. They call them a boom.
Oh, okay, got it. For getting them down river.
Yep. And do you know what a bucking or bucker is?
I would imagine it's when your chainsaw kicks back.
It's when you're cutting a felled tree into logs, or somebody who does that.
Oh, got it.
Do you know what a bowl of the woods is?
A bowl of the woods? No.
It's actually the man in charge of the logging operation, the boss.
Is it the bull? B-U-L-L or B-O-W-L?
Bull.
Oh, I thought you
B-U-L-L.
said bowl.
Bull crap.
I immediately went toilet with it when you first said, but I didn't want to say that.
Do you know what a bull whacker is?
Yeah. Oh, no.
Woof.
Nope.
A bull whacker is the ox teamster in an old-time logging camp.
Okay.
Do you know what I think it's calked boots are?
They're not Red Wings. They're shittier boots. Is that right?
They're boots with the sharp spikes added to improve traction, like when you'd climb up a tree, for example. Yeah. They'd be calked boots.
I know when companies do specialty concrete flooring, like in basements and stuff, and they're like it's supposed to be really smooth, the shoes that they wear are like golf spikes. So that way they're not making an impression. The little spikes that they're walking on don't actually leave a bubble or any trace when you're walking on wet concrete.
I have actually seen those shoes.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of a cat skinner?
No.
It's not a Jeffrey Dahmer type dude. He's not fucking killing
Sounds,
animals.
it sounds a little Ed Geenish.
Yeah, it's a little Geenish, but it's actually a bulldozer operator. They called him a cat skinner.
Okay.
Do you know what a choker is?
No.
It's not the shitty necklace the skanky girls wore in the 90s.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about those.
It's actually a chain or cable that going around the log to be skidded off.
Oh, you know what? Yep. Ice road truckers.
Do you know what a conch or conchs are?
No.
They're fruiting bodies of a fungus and rotting wood.
Okay.
Do you know what a cork is?
What my sister pulls out of a wine bottle.
Yeah. They're short, sharp spikes set in the sole of the shoes.
Okay.
Do you know what a cruise or cruiser is?
When the log is going down the hill and it's uncontrollable.
It's actually somebody who measures and estimates the amount of board feet in a standing tree. So it's actually, or a person who does that.
Okay.
So you just measure out the tree diameter
Sure.
and see what planks they can get out of the tree
Sure.
for cash reasons, obviously.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know what a crummy is?
A Pop-Tart?
We have a crummy at work that I use once in a while. It's a piece of shit. It's actually
okay.
it's a company vehicle or railroad car used to haul workers to the site. We have some crummies at work.
Dude, that was your 97 Intrepid you used to drive.
Where the reverse went out. You got to go forward all the time.
If you get into a parking lot and all that's left is spots behind somebody else, you would physically have to put it in neutral and then
Have somebody push
walk it back. There was a time when him and I were in the car. He was in the driver's seat. I'm in the passenger seat. I had my right leg out. He had his left leg out, and we're just pushing it while we're sitting in the car.
All right, the next term you got is a curly. Do you know what a curly is?
Wow, one of the characters on Three Stooges.
That is true, actually, but it's a part of the wood where you get like a wavy pattern in it, so they call that a curly.
So is that like a bend or a bow in it, or
No, it's actually just like the pattern of the wood. It's like a curve. It kind of looks like a wave.
so the
like
wood grain is
Yep.
sort of blah.
Yeah, curvy. Do you know what a deacon seat is?
Nope.
It's a bunkhouse bench made of a split log. It's actually a pretty big log, but they make benches out of them.
So does the underside still have the curvature of like the outside of the tree,
lot of
and then the
times-
top is just a flat?
Yeah, a lot of times that's
Planed
pretty
off.
much how it was. It was like a curve with like two little wood logs coming out of it,
Nice.
basically like just a small seat.
That's actually a really, really high-end type of furniture now, especially if you head up to Minocqua and you go to Roughing It.
So if you ever get a chance, go on Amazon. You can actually buy a stump to sit on. Like they're treated and everything, but like it's like $300. I'm
Like you
man,
would normally see up north around a campfire.
Yeah, it's like
And
$300.
people pay?
People pay $300 for it. I could make you one for $20. Hit us up.
I've got like 5 trees here in my yard that could create a bunch of those.
I can make you a maple one, a cedar, whatever you want. I'll do it for $20.
I've got a
So
crab apple one that's pretty thick. You could sit on, like for the kids.
I can't do a 2-day shipping, but you just stop by. I'll hook you up with one.
Absolutely. You show up with your pickup truck and we'll get you loaded.
Do you know what a dehorn is? It's kind of what I'm doing right now.
I don't. Is it sipping a beer?
It's actually an alcoholic beverage, any type. Usually it's moonshine in the working camps.
And what was that again?
A dehorn.
A dehorn. Okay.
Yeah, I crack dehorns quite a bit.
Oh, baby.
Do you know what a drag day is?
That's a date to Hamburger Mary's.
It's a day when you can get an advancement on your paycheck. And back in the day, I mean...
That was probably generously used by many of the
I'm sure.
loggers.
I mean, a lot of times I'm sure these guys collected their paychecks and just dipped, you know.
I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today.
Do you know what an escape path is? It's pretty...
I would imagine that it's just like an exit strategy in case of emergency.
That's exactly it.
Trees coming down. We have to know what we're going to do beforehand.
Do you know what felling means?
Nope. No idea.
It's actually dropping the tree. So when you're felling a tree, you're actually just dropping the tree.
Got it. So it's just bad English.
Yeah. Do
Great.
you know what a Gandhi dancer is? And it's not the women dancing for you in Hurley. It's
I was just going to say, I mean, Vegas Show Club or whatever it is.
lap dance.
Yeah.
It's actually a man who uses a pick and a shovel. They're called a
Silk.
Gandhi dancer.
Exotic.
Do you know what a gin pull is? And it's not a thing at Silk Exotic either. It's not when you're sipping on some Tanqueray and spinning around in circles.
Is that when you're at the bar and you're playing dice and one goes off the bar and you have to do a rail shot or a shot of rail gin?
Not exactly, but
Okay.
So
that was close.
A gin pull is a short spar used for loading and unloading logs.
A short spar, is that almost like a firewood poker kind of thing?
Exactly. Yeah, it's like that's kind of a spar. You'd use something similar to that.
It's a tool.
Yep. Do you know what a go devil is? And it's not somebody that goes to the strip club and gets the lap dance.
Dude, devilish. No, I don't know what that is.
It's a splitting maul used in some areas, and in others it's a sled used to lift the log from the front end.
Okay.
Do you know what a grab skipper is?
Is that a hammer that's pointed on one end?
Got it. That's exactly it.
Okay.
Nailed it, that one. Do you know what a hard tack outfit is?
A hard tack outfit. No, I've heard of hard tack. And I mean, they call companies outfits, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, so a hardtack outfit is like actually a logging camp that gives you like really crappy food. It'd be like a logging camp today delivering you some Taco Bell or something where you're going to get the wild doo-doos in the woods.
It's what all the NBA players are complaining about in their bubbles in Orlando, that their food tastes like dump. And it's like the stuff that I literally just ate on Tuesday. A hot dog with some macaroni and cheese and ketchup.
30-old shrimp.
Yeah.
Do you know what hardware is? I mean, obviously there's multiple uses for the term hardware, but I've run into this problem myself.
I mean, random nuts and bolts, screws.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty much it. It's bolts and nuts that are in the tree, so when you hit them with the chainsaw, you get a spark.
I did that the other day. I was mowing the lawn, and up and down 36, not 36, up and down Forest Home, there's a bunch of trucks that come by, big flatbeds, and they all have chains and stuff holding, rigs down and stuff. But as soon as they're empty and they're hauling feathers, those chains sometimes are just sitting on the top of the flatbed. And when they hit all the bumps, they just come flying off of the trucks, and then they sit on the roadside right on our easement. And this chain was buried. I didn't see it at all, and it was rusty colored, so it just sort of blended in nature. And I went over it with my push mower doing edging. That immediately sucked in, and the whole thing shut off, and the gas cap flew up in the air about 3 feet. I got nervous. I was like, this thing's probably broken.
There's a little poop in the pants when you see that.
I definitely poop in a pantyhose.
All right, do you know what? This one's another common term. Do you know what a high climber or high rigger is?
Somebody that has to be the one that goes really high up on the tree.
Yeah, if I don't have a lift, that's not me. I'll tell you right now. I'm a base camp guy. Like
right. If you don't have a cherry picker, something with a bucket up top. I mean, there's no way I'm doing that.
Do you know what highballing or highball means? It's not when you wear your pants up to your stomach.
It's when it's cold outside.
Yeah, that is a highballer. Those things suck up in your stomach around here when it's -10.
Yeah. Seinfeld fans. It was cold. I was in the pool.
So it actually is a term for using to speed up the operation. Like, an expert would be able to do this. So they'll yell, "We need highball or highballing." So you need to speed it up a little bit.
Oh, okay, got it. Undelay.
Do you know what a hot saw is?
I would imagine that it's one that's been used to cut through a bunch of stuff, and the blade is warm.
That can be a hot saw. So,
or do you mean the one that's running actively?
But it is that too. So What it is, like, I've done a hot saw before. It's when you don't actually properly mix the gas and the oil together.
Oh.
So the saw starts getting really hot, and it's like it smokes from the change, the drive.
Yep. So that's usually when you have more gas than oil.
Yeah.
Or is it the opposite?
It's the opposite. It's usually when you don't have more oil.
Okay.
So because the oil is actually what's cooling it down, the gas.
Well, that's
is
what I
fueling
thought.
It. Yep.
Because the purpose of a mixed, what is it? A 2-cycle?
Yeah.
Is mixed.
Yep.
And then so you have the oil goes through with the gasoline to do all the lubricating it's working
and the cooling. So,
right.
Yep.
Okay.
Do you know what a ink slinger is? And actually, this is kind of a derogatory term. I'd technically be an ink slinger. It's basically somebody who keeps time in the logging camps. It's like an office worker. It's technically an ink slinger.
Yeah, you're not a grunt.
You're not
doing any
actually
of
doing the
tough
work. You're doing the easy
Yeah.
paperwork.
I am too then, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a bureaucrat. I mean, I hate to say it, but in engineering, you're basically a bureaucrat.
I was just going to say, I mean, technically my collar's, a little more on the white side.
Do you know what an iron burner is?
No?
It's a blacksmith in a logging camp.
So what would they make?
So back
Like
then,
spikes?
yeah, they'd make spikes
In order to hold, like the wood logs on like trucks or
Yeah, they would actually fire up those ovens and actually make some of the we're going to talk about log tongs or some of the tooling that they would use, spikes.
Yeah.
They'd actually make them there sometimes, especially in the old timey days.
I would imagine you'd have to have
you
that,
can't go to Ace Hardware and pick this stuff up. It's somebody's making it,
There's no Home Depot.
Do you know what a jailbird is? I mean, besides like the standard.
The only thing that I can think of, and I don't even know if there's actually a movie to reference or anything like that, but I just imagine somebody who escapes jail, they go directly to this camp, and then they just fit right in because nobody's really documented anyway.
I mean, that probably is another term for it because jailbird is multiple use, but actually in the term of logging, a jailbird is somebody who cuts over their property line, cutting someone else's logs. So when you cut them, they'll eventually spot that, and the person that did it is sent to jail for doing it.
Yeah.
Do you know what a key log is?
No.
And it's not that first log you let out in the morning.
Well, that's key.
Loosen up.
That is key, though. Yeah.
It's actually a log that would jam up the rest of the lumber from moving downstream. So it's like it would actually create a dam, and all the lumber would bundle up behind it, so it would stop all the log moving down the rivers.
That's such weird terminology, to be honest.
Yeah, and actually we were just at the Agate Falls up in UP, and that's where they had a huge logging industry, and it was pretty cool to see the waterfall. And it would be cool to see the lumber actually shooting down that thing. It'd be cool.
Isn't it crazy the amount of, the logging industry up there that was so prevalent before because of its proximity to like waterways, but the paper companies that are still making stuff up north as well.
Yeah, there's a ton of them too. And if any of you haven't smelt, go to Wisconsin Rapids or even Ashland and smell the pulp smell. It's a stinky smell.
Pulp and paper always gets a bad rap because it is. It's such a smelly operation in order to get it to what it needs to be. Gary, Indiana, that's the number one reason why it became like the stinkiest, city in America is because of its paper industry. The pulp and paper industry in Gary, Indiana was always booming. And yet, that emission from the stacks is just foul. It is awful.
Yeah. It's pretty bad. I mean, go through Wisconsin Rapids and just kind of go next to the paper mill. I mean, you can smell it probably from a half mile away when they're actually running.
It is.
It's pretty stinky.
But we also have right here where we're at in the studio, there is a garbage like landfill, only probably 2-3 miles away. But the biggest concern is when we wake up sometimes in the morning, if it's kind of like a more dense air, that smell of would that be like like the poop smell?
Yeah.
Methane?
Yeah.
It's like methane.
It is. It's similar.
And I mean, it's not harmful, but if you have the windows open, it creeps in, and that'll be the first. It's like, how you wake up to the smell of coffee or bacon? This is like waking up to a gross gas fart.
If you're walking around on the streets, it actually does kind of permeate into your clothing. You can smell it when you leave. It's stinky.
On our walk this morning, that was you could smell it.
Yeah.
It was bad.
All right, the next term I have is log lizard, and it's not a lot lizard,
Jesus.
and you know what that is. I mean,
is that somebody who waits around by the porta potties at a concert?
Yeah.
And by somebody, I mean,
yeah. So a log lizard is actually a tool made from a crotch tree on which the front of a log is loaded for easy skidding.
You just said, dude, first of all,
crotch.
You said crotch, and then you said easy skidding.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what's easy skidding. Eating chili and then trusting too much.
So I want to, before we keep going, I want to give a little story. So when I was out of school, I graduated college, and I didn't really want to go into the workforce right away, so I took a short break and just kind of took a road trip. And I mean, being like kind of naive from a small town, even with college, I learned some things, but I went to a truck stop, right? and I was sleeping in my car, and all of a sudden I hear a knock on the window, and I'm like, yeah, who is it? And this woman asked me to roll down my window and starts talking to me, and I didn't know what she wanted out of me, She was just talking to me, kind of like just...
Seemed friendly.
Yeah, seemed friendly. She didn't look like somebody that was into this deal,
Right.
And I'm like, no, thank you. I'm going to go. She wanted to kind of come in my car, kind of talk to me a little bit more. I'm like, no, thank you. I'm going back to sleep. My buddy's passed out in the back seat, And all of a sudden, like, we wake up the next day, and one of the truckers like, do you know what that was? He's like, that's a lot lizard. That is somebody who will actually service you in the roadside stops. I'm like, dude, I'm so naive. I'm a kid.
Yeah.
And maybe back then I was single, so maybe I would have went for it. But my buddy was in the back seat, dude. I'm not going to take a tuggy while,
That was your brother, right? Your stepbrother?
Yep.
Was that trip out west?
Yeah, it was that trip. And I'm not going to take a tuggy while my brother's in the back seat, It's like, it's messed up. But it was kind of just something I learned on the road. It was, I've had multiple experiences from it. It was a cool trip.
I was just going to say, but you've heard that before. But you always kind of imagine that it's almost like a myth. It's folklore.
Yeah.
But then you get like towards Iowa, Nebraska, sort of like the flyover states, and it's real because there are so many OTR, over the road truckers or whatever. It's weird because they're, I don't want to say that it makes the whole thing like scummy or whatever, but I prefer rest areas. I'm one of those people that, when I'm driving down the highway and we're doing like a road trip, I prefer the truck stops because there's generally an attendant on site. Whereas if you get off the highway and you go down like a mile to get to, the local gas station, there might not be an attendant at all. And that person who's working the register, they don't have time to go sanitize anything or clean anything up. So the truck stops have always been key for me, unless you're in reach of like a Quick Trip. Quick Trips, again, I say this all the time. They have a light switch to flip on if the room needs work. If an attendant needs to go in there and handle something, there's that little light switch that notifies them to get in there and do it.
Right. I mean, I don't want to say this on the air, but they call it the world's largest truck stop, a.k.a. the world's largest stop. I mean, that's pretty much exactly it. It's on I-80. If you ever go through Iowa, it's probably worth stopping at. It's actually a pretty cool place to check out. But
well, they generally have a lot of really good souvenirs on the cheaper side instead of when you go to, an amusement park or something or wherever you're going to.
Exactly.
The truck stops typically have that cheaper stuff, which is nicer if you're trying to buy for a couple people that you're, coming back home to.
Exactly. All right, so we'll move on now to the next term. Do you know what macaroni is?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Kraft
I had
dinner?
it for dinner the other day.
Kraft dinner.
Yeah.
It's actually the sawdust that the saw makes. They called it macaroni back then. I guess because it kind of looks a little noodly and curls sometimes.
So I imagine, if you're not just like cutting a couple 2x4s, where it just turns into actual powder.
Right.
But if you're dealing with a massive log, I would imagine that would, it would look different. It would be longer strands.
Do you know what a muzzle loader is?
A black powder gun?
Yeah, it is. But actually, it's in the camps. They'd have the beds so close together, so they'd have to load themselves in the bed from the front. They'd actually have to jump into the bunkhouse, basically. Sure.
Instead of rolling over 30 dudes' bunks to get yours in the middle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you know what a nose bag is? It's not cocaine, dude.
You know what I was thinking immediately was, so when you're eating chow, like as a horse, like a feed bag almost.
Put it over your mouth and just on the back of your head.
I don't know.
It actually is a lunch bucket.
No way.
It is. It's a lunch bucket. They called it nose bags. So you're pretty close.
Nice.
Do you know what a peeler is?
No.
It's the person who strips the bark off the tree.
I mean, is there any use for bark? What do they do? What do they do with bark?
I actually don't know what they do with the bark. I know the stripped logs because they have really if you go up north, you see it everywhere. But they use them for cabins and building and stuff like that. The poles. Sure. And then you just notch it with your chainsaw, and you can just lay them one on top of the other. It's kind of like Lincoln logs. It's the same deal. I mean,
I've seen those machines that strip the bark straight clean.
Yeah, and it's actually
It's almost like a giant planer, but it's not flat. It's circular. It takes it all off at the same time. It's crazy.
Yeah, back then they actually used draw knives, which is like super dangerous way to do it. It's really dangerous. You're basically pulling the blade towards you to strip the bark off.
Yeah.
It's pretty dangerous. It's curved. It's like a curved knife, and it goes, you just one
I
after
know what you're
another, and
saying.
it actually strips the bark off. But it's really dangerous.
Yeah. It's almost like a cheese cutter.
Yeah, and if you go to like Old World, Wisconsin, you'll see somebody actually using an old draw knife. I use one because I don't have a lot of money. So
Old World, Wisconsin that's a good point. We should actually do an episode on that.
yeah, I'd love to have somebody on. Definitely, that'd be cool. Have you ever heard of a river pig?
Oh, is that me when I'm trying to shower?
When I go
in the
tubing,
outdoors?
when I go tubing down the Sugar River, my gut's hanging out.
The Sugar River.
Yeah,
Shout out family over there.
it's actually men who work on the river. It's just the river drivers, basically.
Okay.
The guys who used to float in the logs and push them so they were moving.
Sure.
Do you know what a skid road is?
No.
It's just a actual trail that you skid the logs down.
Okay.
Do you know what it means to snipe?
No.
So when you snipe a log, you're actually putting like a taper or a point on it, so it's easier to pull down the trails.
Okay.
It's kind of like sledding it is another term
Sure.
I've heard. You can sled a log where you're kind of cutting it at a taper so you can drag it easier.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know what a splash dam is?
Is that a dam with built up water to help washing logs downstream or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. So you're actually using a log and the water is going to build up behind it. And what they do is they create this dam where there's tons of pressure behind it and then they let it go and it just
To help
shoots.
the others go.
Yeah, it shoots the
I've
other
seen
ones.
that before, yeah.
Do you know what a spring pole is?
Ugh, nope.
It's not going to the strip club in the spring.
I was just going to say, is that when you're done cleaning your house and you finally reward yourself by going over to Vegas Club?
So if you've ever seen like Looney Tunes when they bend the trees over and shoot the characters off, like in Wile E. Coyote, when Roadrunner, like he sets those traps, but he gets on the tree and the
And then
Roadrunner
it
cuts
just
it and he
goes-
shoots them.
Flies in miles.
That's basically what it is. It's a spring tree, a really like a tree that can bend, that can shoot back at you.
Wow.
Do you know what a steam donkey is? It's not a wild sex position where I'm gonna give you the old steam donkey, yeah.
Yeah, it's slang for cool stuff, I would imagine.
It's a portable steam engine. Usually, like it's an older method, but it was like kind of a device to move the logs.
Well, that makes sense because donkeys, I think you can still rent donkeys to go down to the Grand Canyon, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They got those
You
little
can.
saddlebags on the sides of them. And
It's kind of scary. I don't know.
I wouldn't
I did
do
it.
it.
It's freaking freaky, man. I thought I was gonna fall off the side of it.
I've often wanted to go to a couple of the different rims of the Grand Canyon. I haven't seen it myself, but I mean the images are stunning that I have seen. So
Yeah, it's one of my favorite tourist attractions I've been to.
yeah,
The problem is like it gets pretty busy. Everyone wants to stop.
I mean
there.
it's just a giant. I mean it's the way that I think of it is like when I went to the Golden Gate Bridge. When you see like normal traffic just driving on it, doesn't look that bad, but the roadside little stops, yikes! They're
Yeah.
just, I mean, hundreds of people at a time looking out at Alcatraz, and I mean it's just nuts.
Yeah, another cool one to do if you ever take a road trip is the petrified forest. It's
Okay.
like dinosaur age trees that have been petrified. It's pretty neat. I mean,
Nice.
maybe not so much if you got like teenagers or something, but for somebody like me who likes to learn that kind of stuff, it's pretty interesting.
You definitely have to have that kind of a acquired taste for certain things.
All right, the next term I got. Do you know what a swamper is?
Just a helper,
Yeah, it's just a helper in the logging business, basically.
sure.
Do you know what a Swedish fiddle is?
I'd imagine that's got to be like some kind of a slang term for a saw.
Yeah, it's just a crosscut saw.
Okay.
Do you know what a short staker or a boomer is? And it's not an old guy that we call on social media, like the old
Yeah.
grumpy dude. Get off
Way to
my
go.
lawn.
Way to go, boomer.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I don't know what that is.
It's a worker who quits pretty much after earning just a small sum of money. And I've known people that are these kind of people. We come from Elkhorn. There's a lot of boomer short stakers there for sure.
I had one person. So when I was working at Alpine Valley, we were cleaning up after show day. It was one of those ones where it was a turnaround. So the show ends at 1:00. parking lots are finally clear at like 3. You have to show back up to work. You probably left at midnight, and then you have to go back at 5 a.m. to get the parking lots cleared by 11 or noon. When that, like Dave Matthews does a 2-dayer out there back to back.
Yep.
Sometimes Jimmy Buffett does it as well. The Grateful Dead are known for doing it. So being the staff that has to leave at midnight or 1 and then go back by 5, and then you're just walking, like sweeping the parking lots for trash and beer bottles and stuff. I had this one girl, she found money, like probably $50. She walked off.
Oh,
she kept it and just hauled off. She never came back.
For $50.
And normally what we would do is if you found loose money, not in a wallet, you bought donuts and then got to keep whatever was left. But you had to buy donuts with some of that money to provide for the rest of the crew.
Yeah.
So I'd imagine that's kind of like her.
Yeah.
You make a little bit of money and then you just dip.
She's technically a boomer than our short staker for sure.
What a bitch.
Do you know what a timber beast is?
Ooh. No. I mean, just a high tree.
It's a wild or unruly logger. And it's you can call somebody a timber beast too if they're really good at logging. Like they can just shred, they can highball is the term.
Yeah.
I'm going to grab a sip of my DeHorn real quick.
Oh yeah, get it. Let's go ahead and hear it for Ice Cold Cruisers right now. This is a short break.
Do you know what tin pants are?
Tin pants. That's a pair of fresh Dickies that are just stiff and rigid.
I mean, you can get Dickies that are these type of pants. They're actually just waterproof, heavy canvas pants. And Dickies does make...
I wear Dickies shorts a lot, and they're just a stiff canvas pant, but that's cool. I didn't know that.
Do you know what a veneer is? Obviously, somebody who goes to IKEA, you should know this one.
A veneer? Is that like a covering?
Yeah, it's actually a thin sliced lumber that they use to coat tables and chairs with at IKEA usually, or like you can get it at Menards
it's press board.
Too. Yeah, exactly.
Press board, and then you got the top that actually is wood.
Exactly. It's like a thin layer of wood that they cover it with, so it looks like it's maple.
And it can
be
really cheaper, so that way you're not doing a solid wood table.
It looks like maple, but really it's just like super cheap particle board.
Yeah, it's just press wood underneath.
Do you know what a widowmaker is? And wrestling fans, it's not that. It's not the
not
wrestling
the old elbow
move.
drop from the top rope.
Oh yeah, widowmaker.
I would say a widowmaker is a tree that could cause major damage, just huge.
Yeah, it's like a dead limb.
It could end your life.
Yeah, it's like a dead limb or branch that could fall on somebody and end someone's life, thus making their wife a widow.
We don't have a widowmaker out on our property, but we do have. I mean, we have trees that are close that definitely have larger size branches, but I don't think any of them can hit our actual house.
Yeah, we live on a farm. We have tons of maples, like silver maples. So one of these days I got to cut more of them down. But we got a whole bunch of widowmakers in the yard. I try to steer clear of them when I'm mowing because I don't really want to leave the kids hanging.
Yeah. Hey, remember when I was over at your house in Janesville and I gave that table a widowmaker?
Oh, yeah. You bowed a pumpkin, too. That thing was hard.
I bowed many pumpkins.
It was like frozen
so
pumpkin.
Many gourds.
And you widowmakered that pumpkin. I could not believe that one.
But your neighbor came out so aggressive. And he was like, "The kids! They're sleeping!
What are you guys doing?"
And I was like, We're just doing karate."
That was hilarious.
Yeah.
All right, last term I'm going to do, and there's more terms, and I recommend checking out Lumberjack Lingo, but the last term I'm going to give you is, what is a wolf tree?
Wolf tree. Stands alone in the pack.
That could be it. It's actually like a big tree that's kind of like rotted out and ugly, and it's usually hollow in the middle. So when you're cutting it, it's kind of like just junk and rotted out. So that's a wolf tree.
Don't murder me. I beg of you, don't murder me. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's a wolf. Dire wolf.
And that'll conclude the main segment, Lumberjack Lingo. I hope you guys found it very informative. I recommend checking out some of the sources. And grab a DeHorn and stick with us.
Yeah, and if you have any questions further about these terminologies, or if you have anything else to add, be sure to comment on the video itself once we have it on YouTube. And now, another edition of Wisconsin Music.
Yeah, so I put out a feeler probably a few months ago trying to get some local bands, and this one was one of the submissions. His name is R.J. Halstead, and he's a country musician from Janesville, Wisconsin. And he gave us a song that was pretty fitting for our podcast called Wisconsin Beer.
Oh, nice.
It's a really good song. I'm not a huge fan of modern country, but this one's kind of more your old school country sound. It's not that modern like Keith Urban, the pandering country music.
And honestly, so the 2000s country, I really don't enjoy that much. But since like 2010-ish, it's become more of like a pop top 40 kind of thing.
Right.
And I really don't mind it. I think it does it plays off of the original country roots and salutes some of those artists. In fact, some of them even will sample songs from the 30s and 40s in theirs. And so I think that stuff is cool. And you're right. This song is awesome.
It's a cool song. And for like modern country, I mean, I really like Chris Stapleton, and I actually do really
Brothers Osborne, I know you like too.
Midland. But anything
Midland, yeah.
other than that, anything from the turn of the century to the 90s was good. I mean, I liked Garth Brooks. I mean, definitely love that stuff.
Yeah, Brooks and Dunn too. Brooks
Yeah.
and Dunn they redid an album too recently that was cool with some of their hits, but then they did it with featuring some of the newer artists, which is rad.
And I'm pretty eclectic with music. Like I pretty much like all genres. And that's what we wanted. We wanted a more of a various artists, not just like kind of our go-to where it's like indie rock and the pop punk thing. We wanted to get other artists on here, and I think this was great to get his.
And I was just going to say, RJ fits right in. I mean, he sits among those individuals. So hopefully we can get him, a few more listens and pay him some much needed attention too.
Definitely. And if you get a chance, check out his Bandcamp, Facebook, or his Twitter account. He's a really cool guy.
RJ Halstead.
Without further ado, here's the song Wisconsin Beer.
Nectar the gods whatever you're called, it's all same to us now, yeah, drink it down when it hits your tongue, make you feel right when everything's wrong. Oh beer, Wisconsin beer. Toasty City Lights, Pearl Street Brewery, don't forget about Old Door County, spend a little more with your loot, makes you feel oh so good, come on beer, oh beer, Wisconsin beer. Tips cow, whatever it is, just serve it to me now, yeah, leave your taste buds scream for more, keeps you going till the early dawn, come on beer, oh beer, Wisconsin beer. Beer, Wisconsin beer.
All right. Again, guys, that was RJ Halstead with Wisconsin Beer. Be sure to check him out on all of his social media platforms. Absolutely awesome. It only goes even better from there, but how could it? Because it's Wisconsin beer. Speaking of Wisconsin beer, check it out. We have another beer review segment.
Woo.
Today we are taking a look at and tasting Pallet Jack Cruiser IPA. This is from Door County Brewing Company. This is a 4.5% ABV. It's a session IPA. It has really great citrus and tropical fruits profile with hints of, you get mango, you get grapefruit, you even get like pineapple, which is
I'm tasting that right
kind of unusual, but it's awesome. I know we had talked to one of the guys out at the Bavarian Beer House, and he talked about some pineapple beer that they're brewing right now, and it did really well last year. But this one, again, it just has that amazing fruity, citrusy flavor.
You put pineapple and grape in front of this guy, I'm gonna suck it down.
I'm in. I'm in.
Those are my two favorites.
It's a win. This is brewed with Azaka and Citra, right?
Yep, Azaka and Citra hops.
Azaka and Citra, yep.
So we always did home brewing, but we used to make a single malt, single hop, and Citra is always one of my favorites. It always has a like grapefruit, like
it is
tangerine flavor. And I remember one we made. I think you guys got me the recipe from Fort Collins.
Yeah, so I did the research for a really cool recipe. Got the names of all the hops that you needed, plus the amounts, the weights of the hops, and then whatever yeast, or not yeast, but barley and all the other different stuff that was included in that. And while we were out in Fort Collins, there was a small home brewery type shop that had all of that built in, and they were selling all of that stuff as well as all the equipment in order to brew. It was kind of like our northern, northern brewery up here?
Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, really cool shop, kind of right in the heart of downtown Fort Collins, which if you haven't been, again, I'm sure we're going to talk about this a million times.
You got to check it out.
Fort Collins is absolutely awesome. It's not only a college town, but it's also just a super laid back, down to earth, cool town. Feels small, but you've got two of the largest craft breweries there, Odell and New Belgium, and amongst all of the other ones that are there. But this little home brewery shop, we picked up all the ingredients for Russ for his Dirty 30 in order to surprise him when he got home, to say, hey, dude, let's brew a beer to kind of commemorate this whole thing. And in like 3-4 weeks, we were down in that baby.
Yeah, it was cool. It was called, I think we named it Bike Peddler, kind of like
Peddler.
after the New Belgium
thing, the Fat Tire.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, if you don't know about that storied history, I encourage you to go look that up. That's not a story we'll ever do because it's a Colorado brewery. But the bike stories for New Belgium, and because it's employee-owned, right?
Yep.
Because it's employee-owned, when you get to a certain point of employment there, you get a cool completely custom bike, cruiser bikes. And if you haven't read into it, it's cool. Go to their website. They've got stories.
Yeah, it's neat. And
it's
good.
This Door County, this is awesome.
It's equivalent to like any of the other really top-notch beers. I like the fruity stuff, especially in the summertime. The
Citra goes down really smooth, almost like I said before, almost like a cool lemonade, that you reach for. This is in that same wheelhouse. I actually ran into a guy at Total Wine, and I had my little build-your-own six-pack in my hand, and I had 2 spots open, and I heard him struggling, talking to one of the associates there, asking him for pallet jack. And the guy was just like, I don't know. We just don't have it. We have everything in alphabetical order. It should be right here. He was like, never mind. I'll search for something else. He ended up finding a couple of these. Now, this is one of his favorite beers. He walked up to me and he goes, what are you doing? He saw me putting together my own 6-pack. I was finding strictly Wisconsin beers. And he pulls me aside and he goes, dude, you got to try pallet jack. And he hands me the 2 that he found. Those are the 2 that Russ and I are sucking down at this moment.
That's cool.
And so I told him about the podcast and let him know that, yeah, we're going to review this thing then. I mean, this is highly recommended, comes very highly recommended from you. You're a beer drinker. You're a Wisconsinite. Yeah. You're a brother.
Yeah.
Let's go. And now that I'm having this for the first time, I hadn't had this beer ever before, and it is refreshing.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know, the Door County Brewing Company was started in 2012 in Bailey's Harbor, Wisconsin. And I have yet to check this one out too. This is one on my list. I mean, we don't go to Door County often.
Yeah, I don't make my way up that way.
Yeah, but I know, like, I just had a Door County gin. It was
Death's Door.
Death's Door. Oh my gosh.
Maybe that's not the gin. The Death's Door might be the whiskey or the rum or something.
It might have been, but it was
it's all
so,
from that Door County.
It was so delicious, and I love gin. I mean, a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's so gross," but I love the taste of juniper, and I recommend checking that out as well. But this beer is phenomenal, and I recommend you check it out. I think it's available all year round.
Yeah, and gin, honestly, gin done right is distilled with other flavors, other notes.
Yeah,
it's not just that piney.
Yeah.
So one of the ones that I enjoy does cucumber and rose petal. It's Hendrick's, and they
that sounds great.
That's one of the better gins that you can get because it does have the juniper. It's your normal notes, but then they also have that cucumber and that rose petal that, I mean, just absolutely sets it off and sets it apart from any other gin.
Yeah, if you need a nighttime topper, one thing I recommend is if you have any like lavender, try a gin and lavender.
Yeah.
It's a good nightcap if you're trying to go to bed and get a good night's sleep. It works really well.
Yeah, absolutely. This stuff is delicious.
It's so good.
I can't even stop. I love this IPA.
Yeah, it's great. But yeah, please pick it up at your local Woodman's or your local stores, and it's a great beer. I highly recommend it to anyone.
Yeah, this is great. Again, this is the Pallet Jack Cruiser IPA from Door County.
And just a little funny story, I guess, before I let you go. So I used to work at a large company here in Wisconsin, and if you look at the can, there's an old dude riding a pallet jack. So the engineers at this large company I worked for here in Wisconsin, we used to do time trials with pallet jacks. So this is like pretty awesome that somebody else does this. And it was a 20,000 square foot facility, and we'd actually do time trials around the entire building. They had it like roped off. So yeah, the artwork is pretty cool. The beer's great. Please check it out.
Yeah.
So as always, we like to give a local business shout out. In this case, it's the place in West Dallas, Wisconsin called Record Head. They're located at 7045 West Greenfield Avenue in West Dallas, Wisconsin, or West Dalica as we like to know it as.
Yeah, Dirty Style.
Dirty Style. It is my favorite place to go for buying or selling new and used music equipment, movies, music, computer equipment, and video games. It's a regular stop for me, and when I'm up in the Milwaukee area, I always stop. I never pass the place up. They've been around for about 35 years. They have really good prices. The staff is friendly and very knowledgeable. And it was actually voted in 2010 for the A-List Award for the best records and CDs available. So I highly recommend checking them out and liking them on Facebook. And when you're in the area, please, it's a must stop.
Yeah, if you're into record collecting or anything like that, or you think you have something older that you're not using anymore, it's definitely a good place to stop by. Possibly you've got a little bit of a honey hole of records and stuff that you want to get rid of. Or if you're a record collector and you want to try to find, some of those things that are missing out of your collection, this is definitely a place to stop by.
So today we're here with Carrie from Pioneer Park up in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. Carrie, can you tell us a little bit about Pioneer Park? Any events coming up? Anything you recommend doing in the area?
Yeah, so my name is Carrie Bladorn, as you mentioned, and I'm the director at Pioneer Park Historical Complex, which is a museum complex located within Pioneer Park proper, which is a city-owned and operated public park in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. And at the complex here, we have 7 museums all in one complex. There's an antique sawmill museum. There is a wonderful rural one-room schoolhouse museum housed in a authentic, completely restored one-room schoolhouse that was located in the area. It's staffed all with former or current educators, which is really, really special. We have one of the most complete civilian conservation corps museums in the country. It really focuses on the Civilian Conservation Corps and its history here in Wisconsin, particularly the Northwoods of Wisconsin. They planted millions of trees around the Northwoods of Wisconsin, so we owe a lot of our forest to them. We have a wonderful antique fire truck museum. We have a antique outboard motor and boat museum, which has some of the oldest outboard motors you can find on display anywhere in the world, which is really cool. We have the oldest logging museum of its kind on the planet. It's been operating for 88 years, and it has a complete collection of wonderful 1880s logging tools and equipment, and really happy to have that stuff on display. And then last but not least, we have a great Rhinelander Railroad Museum that's housed in a completely restored Sioux Line rail depot, and has an excellent model railroad exhibit of historic Rhinelander, which is always really popular with our visitors. And so all of that combined just makes for a wonderful place to check out some history and to spend the afternoon with friends and family. And despite everything going on this summer with the pandemic, we've been able to put some precautions in place and keep in touch with the Oneida County Health Department to make sure everybody's safe and comfortable, and to be open for the summer. And so far it's been going great. We haven't had any issues.
Great. And Carrie, I got to ask, so are you the Carrie Exotic as well?
Yeah, I would prefer the moniker the Hodag King. And
Awesome.
I don't know exactly how exotic I am, but yeah, certainly I am the man underneath the mullet for that particular video.
The man, the myth. Yeah, we used you. I think we did a Hodag episode, and I think we featured your song there, which is actually pretty cool.
Yeah, when that was all kicking off, and the Tiger King bit was really popular on Netflix. Hey, Bill. Just one moment.
Yeah.
When that was really popular on Netflix, I just thought, I got to do a Hodag parody video. It just made perfect sense.
Oh, for sure.
I agree.
Carrie, around Rhinelander, is there anything else you'd recommend for anyone to do around the area?
The historical complex, there really isn't anything just like it in the Rhinelander community proper. But certainly in the entirety of the North Woods, there's a lot of things someone could go do. There's a lot of stuff to do in the Minocqua area and the Three Lakes area. Three Lakes has a wonderful little museum. Minocqua has a ton of things going on. And aside from that, we have over 1,000 lakes in Oneida County. So the access to boating and fishing and water skiing and all those sorts of activities are plentiful. As far as other things to visit in the Rhinelander community, I am a consummate Hodag aficionado, and I just love the Hodag and how Rhinelander has embraced the Hodag over a 120-year period. And so a visit to the Rhinelander Chamber of Commerce to see the chamber dag, or the big dag as I like to call it, which is kind of greases the entrance to town, is always a popular stop. My friend Ben Burnell, who runs the Hodag store on Lincoln Street, that is always a popular place to stop. Aside from having, I think, like 257 individual Hodag items for sale there, the novelty of just seeing the place is really cool. And it's a great place to get some pictures and get some Hodag swag and stuff like that. So between those three stops, the museum complex, the Hodag store, the Chamber of Commerce, makes for a really fun day. And then downtown Brown Street, there's a couple of great eateries. One of my favorites is CT's Deli. They have a wonderful menu. They have indoor seating. They have outdoor covered seating. They have outdoor kind of beer garden seating. And they are, taking appropriate steps to make sure everybody's safe and comfortable there. So, that I just lined up an itinerary for a sweet day in Rhinelander.
Yeah, my in-laws have a condo in Minocqua, and they just yesterday went to see the big Hodag there, and we're actually enjoying some Drink Wisconsinably, Line and Kugels, which the Hodag store has been talking a lot about as well.
Yeah, on Friday I just finished up a bottle of Drink Wisconsinably brandy from the Hodag store.
Awesome. I have not tried that yet. Is it really good?
It's not terrible. I have to admit, though, I'm a little bit of a brandy old-fashioned snob. It's like I tell people all the time, on Monday morning, I know what I'm going to eat on Friday evening, and that's a fish fry without thinking about it.
Yep.
Hand in hand with the fish fry is a perfectly made brandy old-fashioned. I like mine sweet. My wife likes hers sour. Tells you a little bit about us as a couple. And, so I did get a bottle of this Drink Wisconsinably brandy after they started stocking it at the Hodag store. I thought, I got to try this. It's a Wisconsin distilled brandy, and it really was good. It was excellent. I did, in fact, get another bottle of it.
There you go.
Not the best brandy I've ever had, but I'd say it's definitely in the above 50% echelon.
There you go.
Great. And so I gotta ask. So we on one of the episodes we had the Rhinelander export beer. Have you ever sipped on that stuff?
Yeah, so of course the Rhinelander beer here within the community is legendary. There's a lot of history about that goes back all the way to the 1880s. And I believe it was in the 1960s when the first kind of iteration of the Rhinelander Brewing Company started to kind of close up. And then for many decades, it kind of, the Rhinelander Brewing Company kind of sat, its assets kind of sat stagnant, if you will. And another company was able to procure those assets, including, I believe, recipes for beer and the naming rights and that sort of thing. And since then, this gal, Jody Owlick, who is involved, I believe she's amongst the family that owns the Minha Brewing Company in Monroe, Wisconsin.
Yep.
And they also have a distillery there, too. And she has kind of reprised the Rhinelander Brewing Company name, and they've started to brew their beer again in the last so many years. And so, you know, even though it's kind of a new iteration of the brewery, I think they're doing a great job. And of course, all the locals in Rhinelander think it's really awesome to see Rhinelander beer on the shelves. And certainly I've drank my fair share of Rhinelander beer. I think the shorties tend to be given as a chaser with Bloody Mary in the Northwoods of Wisconsin. And so to have the Rhinelander Shorty beer, which is kind of a novelty in of itself, being the first short beer ever developed way back when. And people just love it, and it's not bad beer either.
No, we've definitely sucked down our fair share, especially in that one episode I brought a case over. So we sucked down some of those Rhinelander Shorties.
Shorties, yeah.
They were good.
Yeah, and they use a lot of the same, logos and graphic design and things. So it's a nice throwback to old times when every community kind of had their own brewery. And, for a while, between like the 1800s and mid-1900s, every single community of any size had their own brewery. And it was almost like this in-house beer. And that started to kind of go away for a while in lieu of, the big bottle brewers like the Millers and the Coors and the Bushes and the Budweisers. And, those were really the household names for a lot of decades. And now people are kind of going back the other way to enjoying a more crafted, lower production style beer. And every town seems to be like springing up with another brewery. New Glarus, of course, is one of the bigger ones, but a lot of towns like Potosi, Wisconsin, and Rhinelander, and all these towns are like firing up new craft breweries. So I think it's wonderful to have both types of beer exhibited. You got the smaller scale brewers and you got the big brewers, and everybody has plenty of beer to drink, and there's nothing wrong with that in Wisconsin.
That's for sure.
I agree.
So before we let you go, Carrie, we got a few questions to ask to find out how Wisconsin you are.
Shoot, I hope that I fare well.
I'm sure you will. So have you ever cut down your own tree?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have a piece of property just south of Rhinelander, which was completely wooded. And my wife and I are in the process of building our own home. And so we, together cleared that land by ourselves. Have cut down tons of trees. And aside from that, have split and stacked unlimited amounts of firewood. So, yes, to answer that, absolutely.
Awesome. I love it.
All right, so next question. Do you have beer brats? And if you do, what beer do you use?
Say that again. Beer what?
Beer brats.
Oh, beer brats.
Yeah.
I really prefer the Johnsonville brats, and this is not
They're good.
to dissuade anyone else from enjoying other brats. There are lots of good brats. Particularly, there's a brat that's made here in Rhinelander, Triggs brats, and those are really good. And then the other big name brand is Clements, which they sponsor a lot of the. I don't think it's Miller Field anymore, but they have the running sausages, at the baseball games.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure those are Clements brats, but I'm a big fan of Johnsonville brats, and those come in a number of different varieties, and the beer brat itself is my favorite. But to get the original and to do up the brats to begin with, I would definitely throw a Rhinelander Shorty in there. That's like the perfect beer brat beer.
I agree.
That sounds good.
The key to a beer brat is you got to just grill them a little bit, and then you put them in the beer.
Yeah.
Don't boil them in the beer and then grill them. See, that's backwards and a kind of a misnomer. But then again, it's a little bit of an argumentative thing. Do you put your toilet paper over the top of the roll or under the roll?
Right.
To each their own.
You know, the other thing you add is like a half a stick of butter. When you pull it off the grill and you put it in the Rhinelander Shorty, put that half a stick of butter in there and just sort of let it not boil like you said, but just kind of cook off and rest.
Yeah, I think adding a stick of butter to any cooking you're doing is always going to be a win-win situation.
You got it.
And just to add one more thing about the brats, they got a lot of what I call designer brats these days.
Yeah.
Like you got the green and gold brats with like cheese and jalapenos, kind of like a nod to the Green Bay Packers. And, you can get any number of crazy brats. I saw one recently. It was a Hawaiian brat with pineapple and green pepper. And I'm more of a purist.
Yeah.
I just like the classic brat. You can keep your designer brats. I know a lot of people enjoy them, but I just want a classic Johnsonville, served up with some good Wisconsin brewed beer.
Yeah.
All right, Carrie, I got another one for you. This is probably a dumb question for you, but have you ever wore flannel to work?
Yeah, even on a hot day, I'll wear a flannel to work.
Awesome.
I end up taking it off, but certainly the flannel pattern, very popular. I think if you went into my closet, it's probably about 80% flannel, particularly for the winter months. Up here in the Northwoods of Wisconsin, we get 18 months of winter every year.
Yep.
So there's plenty of opportunity to wear flannel.
Love it.
And then I got a Northwoods question. So I've done this, but have you ever driven a snowmobile to a bar?
Oh, I've driven a snowmobile to a bar, driven a snowmobile to school, driven a snowmobile to church. It just is an easy mode of transportation and a lot of fun to and fro.
Yeah, I agree.
It's kind of the up north thing to do, especially I know I used to go up to around Hurley, Wisconsin, and I've driven my snowmobile pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, at the school that I went to high school at, and a lot of other high schools in the Northwoods, they had certain parking areas for snowmobiles.
That's awesome.
Cool.
But you can't beat in the winter months hopping on the sled and cruising the trails to your favorite fish fry spot. It just makes perfect sense in the Northwoods.
All right, so I got another question for you. Have you ever been to a tailgate at either like a Packers or Brewers game?
Yeah, absolutely. I've tailgated at both events. And
awesome.
Sometimes we tailgated when it's a non-event. Just kind of get together in any pretty spot and throw the tailgate open, fire up the little charcoal grill, and kick a few Wisconsin brewed beers back. And again, it's a no-brainer for our beautiful Wisconsin atmosphere.
Yeah.
Carrie, I got one more question from you. So if you were to recommend a supper club to somebody on our show, which one would you recommend checking out?
Gosh, this is such a tough question.
I know.
And it's not the first time I've been asked because obviously Wisconsin's just chock full of supper clubs. And like I said, if it's Friday night, I'm eating a fish fry. It's been a little bit different these last couple months. We've been doing a lot of takeout fish fries. But before the pandemic, if it was Friday night, you were going to find us out to eat at one of our local supper clubs. So if I had to pick one out of the thousands of wonderful supper clubs in Wisconsin, I am partial toward a wonderful little place in Sugar Camp, Wisconsin called Moon Dance.
Moon Dance, okay.
Dance. Yeah, I think a fish fry should be served with baby red potatoes of some kind. I think that's like the go-to. And Moon Dance does a wonderful fish fry. They serve the best buttered parsley potatoes you can find anywhere. And the bartenders there always have their old fashions on point. So all of that combined makes Moon Dance my absolute favorite spot.
Great. Thank you for your time, Carrie. We're planning maybe coming up in a couple weeks. We'd love to come and just stop by at the Pioneer Park or even the Hodag store. And we'll bring you some koozies up, and we'd love to just talk more history with you when we get up there.
Yeah, the museum is open Tuesday through Saturday, 10 to 5, and Sundays, noon to 4. We're closed on Mondays, and we'd love to have you visit. It would be a real pleasure.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome, guys. Thank you, and on Wisconsin.
Absolutely.
Hey.
On Wisconsin.
All right, bye.
All right, bye. All right, that concludes this episode of Wisconsin Drunken History Podcast.
If you enjoyed this vulgar display of Wisconsin, we recommend you subscribe via SoundCloud, Apple Podcast, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn.
Also, leave us a review on any one of those above-mentioned sites, and we can read one at the end of every show. Follow us on social media, and feel free to reach out, especially if there is a piece of history or weird news you'd love us to share or research, as well as highlight some local artists or music. Our website is projectcapestudio.com.
I'd also like to thank my friend and past coworker, Steph Skiback, for providing us with awesome podcast cover art, as well as the Dangits for intro and outro music, and all of you for listening. As always,
Watch out for deer on the way home.